Breaking news. Possible Trump witnesses get carrots. Cohen got a stick. In April 2018, President Donald J. Trump anxiously observed from the White House as reports surfaced about federal officials examining the residence of Michael D. Cohen, the individual delegated the responsibility of concealing some of the president's most profound secrets. Shortly after stepping up to defend Mr. Cohen, Mr. Trump cut ties with his fixer, ignoring Mr. Cohen's requests for a pardon and ignoring his legal expenses. When the Mueller team turned their attention to the long-standing financial gatekeeper of the Trump family, Alan H. Weisselberg, Mr. Trump changed tactics. With one condition, Mr. Weisselberg could not willingly collaborate with any law enforcement agency. In exchange, Mr. Trump's business paid his legal fees and gave him $2 million in severance. Spokespeople familiar with the matter said that after Mr. Weisselberg signed the agreement last year, the former president's legal team secretly urged him to testify in a civil fraud case that had been brought against him, in the hopes that the testimony of the finance chief would help their defense. However, Mr. Weisselberg pled guilty to perjury this month after prosecutors claimed he lied while testifying. Both the fixer and the moneyman ended up in prison. A pivotal witness for the Manhattan District Attorney in Mr. Trump's upcoming criminal trial next month, the first prosecution of a former U.S. president, is Mr. Cohen, in contrast to Mr. Weisselberg, who stayed faithful by refusing to indict his master. Court documents and interviews with 18 persons directly involved in the cases, some of whom asked to remain anonymous in order to discuss private conversations, show how powerful and dangerous Mr. Trump's strategies were for avoiding a crisis similar to the one he is currently facing in the cases of Mr. Cohen and Mr. Weisselberg. The trial brings to fruition Mr. Trump's long-standing concern that the prosecution would turn reliable associates into potentially harmful witnesses. Jumping from one case to another, the ex-president tries to influence witnesses as he fights to regain control of the White House despite 4 indictments and other lawsuits. In his online tirades, he combines threats with threats, adulation with criticism, and, when all else fails, he makes life hell for anyone bold enough to disagree with him. While Trump's business associates lauded Weisselberg as a great and honorable man, the ex-president's insults landed squarely on Cohen. In his lawsuit, Mr. Trump has used derogatory terms, including rat and death. The criminal trial in Manhattan, as well as any subsequent ones in Georgia, Florida, and Washington, D.C., will put this forceful strategy, stick rather than carrot, to the test. Some people, like Mr. Cohen, are still planning to testify against Mr. Trump, even though he has publicly whipped them. The former president may now be in an even more precarious legal position as a result of his comments. The court hearing the Manhattan case deemed Mr. Trump's attacks threatening, provocative, degrading, and imposed a gag order prohibiting him from attacking possible witnesses on Tuesday. No comment was forthcoming from Mr. Trump's campaign spokesperson, Stephen Chung, who had previously argued that the gag order was unlawful because it barred Mr. Trump from engaging in core political speech, which is entitled to the highest level of protection under the First Amendment. In the Manhattan trial, the prosecution is likely to call witnesses who were associated with Mr. Trump in 2016, his staff, campaign staff, and friends. According to Mr. Cohen's testimony, Mr. Trump was involved in arranging the hush money transaction with porn star Stormy Daniels. Witnesses may also include Ms. Daniels. It is believed that David Pecker, a former friend of Mr. Trump's and publisher of the National Enquirer, would testify before the jury about his role in arranging that payment and in covering up other embarrassing stories for Mr. Trump. Hope Hicks, who worked for Mr. Trump in the White House and on his campaign, could be asked to explain what happened during that chaotic time. Neither party anticipates having Mr. Weisselberg testify. He has consistently rejected prosecutors' requests for his assistance, arguing that he does not have any conclusive evidence to provide and challenging Mr. Cohen's version of the hush money arrangement. He would also not be a very credible defense witness considering his financial reliance on the Trumps and his guilty plea to perjury. The legal team representing Mr. Trump has painted Mr. Cohen as a perjury-prone opportunist and Mr. Weisselberg as a victim of prosecutorial overreach. In his memoir, Disloyal, Michael Cohen discusses his guilty pleas to federal charges linked to the hush money transaction and other financial offenses that have nothing to do with Donald Trump, while Mr. Cohen has called Mr. Trump's refusal to pay his legal bills, which exceeded $1 million, the worst mistake the president has ever made. Mr. Trump has never claimed that this decision was short-sighted. But, Mr. Trump has voiced his concern that he may have lost Mr. Cohen's loyalty if he had handled him differently. In addition, someone familiar with the former president's thoughts stated that Trump's handling of other witnesses was influenced by Cohen's separation from him. Over $500,000 have gone for legal representation for his political action committee, with the majority going to former staff and advisors who are now testifying as witnesses against Mr. Trump. Mr. Cohen and Mr. Weisselberg had their lives disrupted and their freedom taken away, while the legal status of Mr. Trump is still up in the air. "I was the first lamb led to the slaughterhouse," Mr. Cohen recalled in an interview.